welcome to another Torah class at the weekly Torah shiur, or the weekly Torah portion that we read in shuls, synagogues, and Jewish homes around the world. And just a small disclaimer, my name is Zohar, I'm not a rabbi, and should one need a rabbi, we'll be happy to direct him or her to a rabbi that speaks Hebrew or English that we follow, and also can be found later on after we upload online in the description below, as well as other information and videos from other rabbis regarding the fundamental outlook of Orthodox Judaism, our perspective on HaShem, our creator and sustainer, his creation, and his Holy Torah that he has given to Mount Sinai, on Mount Sinai to the Israelites about 3,500 years ago. We make efforts to meet once a week to share the words of the Holy Torah and the oral Torah and the wisdom of our sages of blessed memory that was passed down through the generations with our family, friends, colleagues, community, Jewish brothers and sisters around the world, as well as anyone from the Gentile nations. Yes, as well as anyone from the Gentile nations that wishes to get closer to our Creator and Sustainer, to His path of truth that He has directed us in His Holy Torah. Be'ezrat Hashem u'b'shem Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach. With Hashem's help and in Hashem's name we shall do and we shall succeed. This week's Torah portion is Parasha VaYeshev, which means and he dwelled. It is found in Sefer Bereshit Perek Lamed Zayin Pasuk Aleph until Perek Mem Pasuk Chaf Gimel. In English, it's found in the book of Genesis, chapter 37, verse 1, until chapter 40, verse 23. And then we will afterwards, on Shabbat, or either at home or in synagogues, we will continue to read the Haftarah, which is a portion of the prophets coinciding with the weekly Torah portion, which is found in Amos, Perek Bet Pasuk Vav until Perek Gimel Pasuk Chet. In English, that's Amos, chapter 2, verse 6, until chapter 3, verse 8. So we will just go through a small overview of this week's Torah portion, and then we will dive into the book of Nofet Tzufim from one of my rabbis in Israel, Rabbi Meshulam HaKohen, Shlita. May he have good and prosperous life. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we will learn something practical from the weekly Torah portion from that book. Yaakov settles in Hebron with his 12 sons. His favorite is 17-year-old Yosef, or in English Joseph, whose brothers are jealous of the preferential treatment he receives from his father, meaning his father is favoring him over the others, such as in which way he made for him a precious many-colored coat, which in those times was considered a very luxurious item, a very unique item. Yosef relates to his brothers two of his dreams, which foretell that he is destined to rule over them, increasing their envy and hatred towards him. Shimon, or in English Simeon, and Levi plot to kill him, but Reuben suggests that they throw him into a pit instead of killing him, intending to come back later and save him. While Yosef is in the pit, Judah has him sold to a band of passing Ishmaelites, descendants of Ishmael. The brothers dip Yosef's special coat in the blood of a goat and show it to their father, leading him to believe that his most beloved son was devoured by a wild beast. Then the Torah pauses and goes into an event with Judah, because at this time, after he was responsible for Yosef, he was considered the leader of the brothers, and he couldn't bear to live with his father. So Judah goes and marries and has 3 children. He steps away from living with the family. The eldest is called EiNeiNu, and he dies young and childless. And his wife Tamar is given in, it's called in Hebrew Yibum. In English they say it's called levirate marriage. It's basically to the second son, Onan. Why? So that the brother can have a child with the woman that became a widow from his brother that passed away, and the first son that is born can be named after his brother that died, in order to continue his lineage. Onan is the name of that brother that married Tamar, and he ends up sinning by spilling his seed, and he too meets an early death. Our sages of blessed memory say they both didn't want to get Tamar pregnant because she was a very beautiful woman, and they were reluctant that it would destroy her body. So they spilled their seed, and they did not enable Tamar to conceive. So God saw that, and Hashem killed them. Judah is reluctant to have his 3rd son marry her. Determined to have a child from Judah's family, Tamar disguises herself as a prostitute and seduces Judah himself. This is later on. A few years later, after the 3rd son grew up, she saw that Judah was not offering him to her to continue that process where she may become conceived, and to have a child that will take the first son's name. So she disguises herself as a prostitute and seduces Judah, or Yehuda, himself. Yehuda hears that his daughter-in-law has become pregnant and orders her to be executed for harlotry. But when Tamar produces some personal artifacts, meaning a ring that was his signature ring, and the staff, and she shows it to him right before she's about to get burned, meaning she displays it. She doesn't tell the public that Judah specifically was the one who got her pregnant. Rather, she said, the one who owns this staff and ring should, the children that are in my womb are his, in order not to embarrass Judah if he wouldn't confess, which shows that the Torah is teaching us that it's better to die than to embarrass someone else in public. That's how far she took it. She's our example, and from her, eventually, the lineage of King David and the future Messiah will come. Very important fact. But when Tamar produces the personal artifacts he left with her as a pledge for payment, he publicly admits that he is the father. Tamar gives birth to twin sons, Peretz, which is the ancestor of King David, and Zerach. Then the Torah takes us back to the story of what's happening with Yosef after he's sold and was told to his father that he was devoured by a wild beast. Yosef is taken to Egypt and sold to Potiphar, the minister in charge of Pharaoh's slaughterhouses. HaShem blesses everything he does, and soon he is made overseer over all his master's property. Potiphar's wife desires the handsome and charismatic lad. When Yosef rejects her advances, she tells her husband that the Hebrew slave tried to force himself on her and has him thrown into prison. Yosef gains the trust and admiration of his jailers, who appointed him to a position of authority in the prison administration. In prison, Yosef meets Pharaoh's chief butler and chief baker, both incarcerated for offending their royal master. Both have disturbing dreams, which Yosef interprets. In 3 days, he tells them the butler will be released and the baker will be hanged. Yosef asks the butler to intercede on his behalf with Pharaoh. Joseph's predictions are fulfilled, but the butler goes back to his job and lives, and the baker gets hanged and killed. But the butler forgets all about Yosef and does not mention him and doesn't do anything for him at that time. This is the overview of this week's Torah portion. Okay, now we'll continue in the book Nofet Tzufim. וישראל אהב את יוסף מכל בניו כי בן זקונים הוא לו ועשה לו כתונת פסים. ויראו אחיו כי אותו אהב אביהם מכל אחיו וישנאו אותו ולא יכלו לדברו לשלום. This is piece, מאמר למד א', piece 31. About בראשית פרק למד ז' פסוק ג' פסוק ד', פרק למד ז' פסוק ג' וד' is about the verses in Genesis chapter 37 verses 3 and 4. The translation of the verses that I read just now. And Israel loved Yosef more than any of his other sons because he was the son of his old age. Israel made him a robe of fine wool. His brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, so they hated him and could not speak with him peacefully or peaceably. The title of this piece is הנהגת ההורים כלפי בניהם צריכה להיות בצורה שווה. The behavior of parents towards their children has to be in an equal fashion. You cannot show love to a certain child more than the other children, if you have other children. בפרשתנו קוראים אנו על קנאת האחים הקדושים ביוסף הצדיק. In our Torah portion this week, we read about the jealousy the holy brothers had in the righteous Yosef. ומבארת התורה מה גרם לקנאה זו. And the Torah is clarifying for us what caused this jealousy. וישראל אהב את יוסף מכל בניו וגומר. And because it says in the verse, and Israel, meaning Jacob, loved Joseph from all of his children, etc. שאותה אהבה יתרה שהנחיל יעקב ליוסף, that extra or additional love that Yaakov bestowed and showed for Yosef גרמה לאחיו שתעלה קנאתם משנאתם עליו, caused his brothers that their jealousy will rise and their hate will grow towards him. ועל זה אמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה במסכת שבת דף י עמוד ב'. And this is what our sages of blessed memory have said in the Talmud Bavli in the tractate of Shabbat, page 10, side B. לעולם אל ישנה אדם בנו בין הבנים. Forever, a person should never behave differently from one son between the others. Meaning, don't act differently for one child in a different manner than you act with other children. שבשביל משקל שני סלעים milat, that for the weight of two stones, it's a measurement basically of clothing. שנתן יעקב ליוסף יותר משאר בניו, meaning that Yaakov gave Joseph more than he gave his other children, because he made a special tunic, a special coat, if you will, for Yosef. He could have also made, for his other children as well. And yes, it costs more, but Yaakov wasn't lacking. He could have also invested more money, the same amount of money, for the other children to make it. So, because he didn't make the same similar coats for his other children, nitkanu bo echav, the jealousy of his brothers was aroused. ונתגלגל הדבר וירדו אבותיו למצרים, וירדו אבותינו למצרים. And from that point onward, the events took a snowball effect, and because of that, our forefathers went down to Egypt. ועל אף שכבר אמר הקדוש ברוך הוא לאברהם אבינו, שם פרק ט"ו פסוק י"ג, and even though HaShem, the Holy One, blessed be He, has already said to Abraham, our forefather, in Genesis chapter 15, verse 13, ידוע תדע כי גר יהיה זרעך בארץ לא להם ועבדום ועינו אותם 400 שנה. You should know that your offspring will be a stranger in a land that doesn't belong to them, and they will be slaves, and they will be tortured for 400 years. ביאור התוספות שם דיבור מתחיל להתגלגל. Over there, the Tosfot, which is the additional commentators besides Rashi, where it mentions the word להתגלגל, שעדיין לא היה נגזר עליהם עינוי כל כך, that until that point they were decreed to get a certain amount of suffering, but what happened but then it changed. The situation for later generations became worse. Also, the Maharsha, which is another commentator, in part 1, also commentates over there. And then in the Ritva, Bechidushav Sham, another commentator named the Ritva, also mentioned in his notes over there, Katav shenigzar alem inui, אבל לא במקום ידוע. In the Torah, when God told that to Abraham, it was decreed upon them a certain type of a suffering, but it was unknown where it would be. ועל ידי שנתן יעקב ליוסף יותר משאר בניו, and by Yaakov giving to Yosef more than his other children, נתגלגל הדבר וירדו אבותינו למצרים. ועיין עוד במהר"ם מלובלין שם. That because he gave more to Yosef, more than his other children, it turned out that our forefathers had to go, our ancestors meaning, had to go down to Egypt. And the Maharam of Lublin adds more over there. הנה, כל כבר ביריו מבין בנפשו כי אהבת יעקב ליוסף אינה אהבה סתמית ורגשית בלבד. And behold, every person understands that the love that Yaakov had for Yosef isn't just a regular emotional type of love alone. אלא הייתה זו גם כן אהבה שכלית וערכית. Rather, this was also a type of love that was like mindful and with a lot of value. וכמו שמבארת התורה, מדוע אהב יעקב את יוסף משאר בניו, and as the Holy Torah clarifies why Yaakov loved Joseph more than all of his other children, כי בן זכונים הוא לו, because he is his youngest son. וכתב רש"י שנולד לו לעת זקנו. And Rashi clarified that because he was born when Yaakov was already old. ואונקלוס תרגם בר חכים הוא כל מה שלמד משם ועבר משם ועבר, כל מה שלמד משם ועבר מסר לו. And Onkelos translated into Aramaic over there that, how did he translate these words? That he is the son of wisdom for him. Meaning, everything that Yaakov has studied, specifically in the study hall of Shem and Ever, as we learned in the past, that's what Yaakov actually transferred over to Yosef. דבר אחר, שהיה זיו עיקונן שלו דומה לו. Another thing is that Yosef, from all the brothers, was the one who resembled Yaakov the most. They looked almost like twins. They look very similar. Ad kan. Until here is his words. And in the Ramban and Ve'HaRadak, and the Nachmanides and the Radak, two great sages, הסכימו ביותר עם פירוש אונקלוס. They lean to agree more with the translation of Onkelos, שאהבת יעקב ליוסף אינה אלא מפני שהיה זקן בחוכמה. That the love of Yaakov for Yosef wasn't only because he was old, that he was born to him in his old age, but with wisdom. Meaning he transferred all of his special learnings that he learned. Obviously, he taught his other children Torah and how to behave. But additional things that he taught Yosef, he didn't teach the other brothers. ואמרו שפני ועם כל זאת מבקרים רבותינו זכרונם לברכה את הנהגתו של יעקב אבינו, and with all of that our sages of blessed memory are criticizing how Yaakov Avinu behaved ואמרו שפני ששינה בנו בין הבנים התגלגלו אבותינו למצרים. And they said that because he behaved differently and favored one over the others, our ancestors had to go down to Egypt. ועתה צריכה התבוננות מדוע אכן יעקב אבינו שינה התנהגותו כלפי יוסף משאר בניו וכי לא ידע שיכולים לבוא לקנאה על ידי כן. And now we need to understand and to really look deeper, why did Yaakov Avinu change his behavior and attention to Yosef from the rest of the brothers? Did he not know that they will be jealous because of this? וראיתי בזה ביאור נפלא שכתב הגאון רבי אריה לייב צינץ זיכרונו לברכה בספרו מלוא העומר על התורה פרשת וישב על פי הגמרא בערכין דף ז עמוד ב'. And I saw our rabbi is clarifying that he saw a great clarification in a book called Melo HaOmer, that great rabbi and genius, a Gaon, Rabbi Aryeh Leib Tzintz, may his righteous memory be a blessing, about this week's Torah portion on VaYeshev, according to the Talmud Bavli of the tractate of Erchin, page 16, side B. Amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said, Meid ani alei shamayim va'aretz, מעיד אני עליי, שמיים וארץ, שהרבה פעמים לקה רבי עקיבא בן יוסף על ידי, שהייתי קובל עליו לפני רבן גמליאל וכל שכן שהוספתי בו אהבה, לקיים מה שנאמר במשלי, פרק ט' פסוק ח', אל תוכח לץ פן ישנאיך, הוכח לחכם ואהבך. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said, I testify upon myself that heaven and earth are my witnesses, that many times Rabbi Akiva, the known Rabbi Akiva, son of Yosef, has been stricken by me, meaning he got hurt from him in some way. שהייתי קובל עליו לפני רבן גמליאל, that I would reprimand him in front of Rabbi Gamliel, and even more so, and by doing so, I have given him love by doing that. לקיים מה שנאמר במשלי פרק ט' פסוק ח', in order to bring to light and to observe what it says in Proverbs chapter 9 verse 8, אל תוכח לץ פן ישנאיך, הוכח לחכם ואהבך. Don't reprimand a joker because he'll end up hating you. Rather, you should reprimand someone that's wise, and then he will love you for it. עד כאן דבריו, until here is his words. הרי שטבע האנשים השלמים אינו כשאר האדם. Behold, that the nature of complete people are not like normal human beings. ששאר האדם דרכם לשנוא את התוכחה. That the masses and of human beings, the regular people, their way is that when they get reprimanded, they hate those who reprimand them. אבל השלמים אוהבים את התוכחה. And they actually hate the reprimanding. They don't like to be reprimanded. But those who are whole and complete with themselves, אוהבים את התוכחה. They love actually to get reprimanded. ותרבה אהבתם למוכיח גם כן. And those people who reprimand them, not only do they not hate them, but they love them. Why? Because they actually use that reprimanding as a stepping stone to learn about themselves so that they can grow. ולכך אמר רבי יוחנן בן נורי, and that's what Rabbi Yochanan, the son of Nuri, said, שבזה שגרם שהיה רבן גמליאל מוכיח לרבי עקיבא, הוסיף אהבת רבי עקיבא אליו, that by that he would reprimand him, that Rabban Gamliel would reprimand him, meaning reprimand Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva ended up adding a lot of love towards Rabban Gamliel, because Rabbi Akiva was wise. He was one of the greatest Jews that ever lived in the Torah world. גם במקרה עם יוסף ואחים. Also here, in what happened with Yosef and the brothers. הבין יעקב אבינו בדעתו שבזה שהיה יוסף מרבה עליהם תוכחה, כמו שכתוב בראשית פרק ל"ז פסוק ב', ויבא יוסף את דיבתם רעה אל אביהם. And also here, with Yosef and the brothers, Yaakov, our forefather, understood in his mind that the fact that Yosef was bringing reprimanding, I don't know, or let's see how the Torah says it in Genesis chapter 37, verse 2, בראשית פרק ל"ז פסוק ב', he spent the time. Okay, so it says there, and Joseph brought, when Joseph was with the sons of his father's wives, Bilhah and Zilpah, Joseph brought their father evil reports about them, meaning things that they were doing wrong, incorrectly. They were behaving not nice. Joseph would bring that news to his father. So when Yaakov Avinu received this news from Joseph, he understood it in a different way. It's not like he was coming to tell something bad about his brothers so that he would gain more favor or something like that in his father's eyes. His father understood it differently. Adarabba, titrabe yoter ahavat achim al Yosef, that the brother's love for Yosef would grow because his children were smart. ולקח לא חשש להרבות גם הוא אהבתו אל יוסף והלבישו כתונת פסים. And because he made this calculation, where because he's bringing news about his brothers that are not good, his father would be, Yaakov would reprimand the brothers for their evil doings, right? And in that way, because they should be wanting to grow out of the reprimanding, like we learned before with Rabbi Akiva, then they would not only not hate Yosef, their love for him would grow because he's helping them grow. And that's why Yaakov also loved Yosef even more, and also didn't fear in showing it by giving him extra coat that he made especially for him. But the holy brothers had a different thought in their mind. שהבינו בדעתם שמשום שהיה יעקב אבינו אוהבו יותר מהם, לקח מפלה ביניהם לבינו, ולקח קנאו בו אחיו. They understood in their mind that because Yaakov Avinu loved him more than them, that's why he made like some kind of unfair advantage between him and them. A separation in that behavior that was evident, and that's why his brothers were jealous of him, as it said over there in verse 4. And his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, so they hated him and could not speak with him peaceably. And that's why, that's why our sages of blessed memory criticized that Yaakov, our forefather, should not have made all these kinds of calculations that we just mentioned, that because Joseph is bringing their evil doings or incorrect behavior to their father so that he would reprimand them and then their brothers would love him more. But that was an incorrect calculation. אלא אפילו אצל האחים הקדושים זכרונם לברכה היה צריך להיזהר שלא לשנות בינו ובין הבנים. But even by the holy brothers, the 12 tribes, the 11 tribes, or the 10 tribes, peace be upon them, it was also required to be careful that he should not have treated the children with favoritism, one more than the other. So from here we learn that even not only Yaakov, that how great was Yaakov and his children, even more so all the regular people in the world should not behave in this manner of favoritism of one child over another. And in the book of the Khatam Sofer, in his notes and of Shabbat on this Torah portion, he wrote to emphasize from the language of the Talmud, forever a person should never treat differently between the one child between the other children. משמע דווקא כששניהם שווים ממש, meaning especially when two of his sons or children are equal specifically. Ve'HaEr ben habanim, meaning a son between the sons. אבל כשיש לו יתרון עליהם בתורה ובחוכמה וכולם חייבים לכבודו לא שייך קנאה. But when one son has an advantage above the other children in wisdom and in Torah, jealousy is not relevant here. ולפי זה ביאר מדוע יעקב שינה יחסו כלפי יוסף משאר בניו. And according to this point, meaning if there is a son that's wiser and greater in Torah than all the other children, obviously he deserves respect. It's not out of nothing that he's getting more love. He deserves that respect. The respect isn't his per se as a human being, but as the Torah that he holds. Like when we respect a rabbi, we don't respect necessarily the person. We respect the Torah that is accumulated in the person. And according to this, and according to this point, it's clarified why did Yaakov change his the way he treated Yosef more than the other children. לפי שהיה יוסף בן זקונים, שמסר לו כל דרכי חוכמה וכולם חייבים לכבודו, ואין כאן קנאה. And because Yosef was, as we mentioned, a child of his old age, that according to Onkelos also gave him all of the wisdom that he has learned from the studies of the study hall of Shem and Ever, and everyone is required to give him a certain type of honor because of that amount of Torah that he held. And jealousy is not relevant here. אך הפסוק מדויק ממה שאמר בן זקונים הוא לא, דייקה לו ולא להם. But and also the verse is emphasizing what it says, that he is a child of old age for him. Hu lo, for him. Emphasizing for him, ולא להם, and not to them. כי בעיניהם לא היה חשוב לחכם הסופר. Meaning, אלא היה נחשב בעיניהם לנער ולא לבן זקונים. Because for him, he was, in Yaakov's eyes, he was great. He was the youngest, one of the youngest ones, for that he came in his old age, and also that he knew all of this Torah, that all of this honor that he deserved was only in Yaakov's eyes, but not in the eyes of the 12 tribes. That's why the Torah is emphasizing lo, meaning to him specifically, and is important to Yaakov, but not lahem. It should have said lahem, meaning to them, to the whole family. Because in their eyes, he was not considered to a wise person or a scribe. Rather, he was only important in their eyes as a young lad, and not someone that is the youngest of one of the young people that were born to a young son that was born to his father at an old age and wise. שמו כמו שכתוב בספר בראשית פרק ל"ז פסוק ב', והוא נער את בני בלהה וכולי. As it's mentioned in the Torah in Genesis chapter 37 verse 2, and he is pasturing the flocks and he spent time with the sons of his father's wives. I'll read it again from the beginning of the verse. The following narrative is a chronicle of the descendants of Yaakov. Yosef was 17 years old and was pasturing the flocks with his brothers. He acted like a young That's the key word. He acted like a young, immature boy. He spent time with the sons of the father's wives, Bilhah and Zilpah, and Joseph brought their father evil reports about them. ולפי כך מצאו מקום לקנות ביחסו של אביהם כלפיו מה שהם לא זכו. And that's why, therefore, they found a place to be jealous of the treatment that he received from that Yosef received from his father, and they did not merit and get to receive that kind of great treatment. But still, there's a question about Yosef, the righteous person himself. עצמו. שהרי מצינו שהפלה בין אחיו שכתוב, לכולם נתן לאיש חליפות שמאלות ולבנימין נתן 3. 300 כסף ו5 חליפות שמאלות. ואיך לא יחשש שכשם שיקנאו אחיו בו, אתה יקנאו גם כן בבנימין. So the question on Yosef, the righteous Yosef himself, is that we find later on in the Torah, after this whole story, towards the end of the book of Genesis, we find that Yosef himself has separated between his brothers, meaning, as we find in Genesis chapter 45, verse 22, where it says over there, when Yosef was giving gifts to all of his brothers after he revealed himself and all of that he is their brother. After the whole story unfolds, he gave everyone gifts, and it says, and for everyone he gave, for each person he gave suits, clothing, and for Binyamin, for his brother of the same mother, Rachel, he gave 300 silver coins and 5 suits. When everyone else got 1 or 2, he received 5 suits and 300 silver coins. ואיך לא חשש שכשם שקנו אחיו בו, אתה יקנו גם בבנימין. And how wasn't he afraid that in the same way that they were jealous of him, now that they'll be jealous of Binyamin, because he treated him differently. וכבר תמרו על כך רבותינו במסכת מגילת דף ט' ז' עמוד א', and already our sages of blessed memory have wondered about this in the Talmud Bavli, in the tractate of Megillah, page 16, side A. אפשר דבר שנצטער בו אותו צדיק, ייכשל בו? Could it be that the same thing that Joseph, the righteous person Joseph, has suffered from because he was a subject of favoritism of his father, he suffered from that. Could it be that he will now fail in that test after experiencing what it can do? V'tirtzu, and our sages of blessed memory have answered, Amar Rabbi Binyamin bar Yefet. Ramez Ramaz lo. Rabbi Benjamin, the son of Yefet, said, he hinted to him a hint. שעתיד בן לצאת ממנו שיצא מלפני המלך ב5 לבושי מלכות. And he did this to Binyamin in order for Yosef to hint Binyamin a hint that in the future he had a divine inspiration, and at that moment, and basically he was hinting to Binyamin that in the future he will have a descendant that will come out of him, that will go in front of a king in 5 types of clothing, in 5 types of royal clothing. שנאמר באסתר Pasuk Tetvav, as it says in the book of Esther, chapter 8, verse 15, Mordechai yatsa minifnei hamelech b'shush machut tchelet v'gomer. And Mordechai has come out has left from in front of the king in royal clothing, in turquoise and other types of garments, 5 garments. ואם תאמר עם כל זאת, עצם זה שנתן לבנימין חלופות יותר מכולם, הרי הוא מטיל קנאה בין האחים. And if you will say with all of this that he gave to Binyamin more suits, more royal suits, more than he gave to everyone else, he is actually anyways causing jealousy between the brothers. אולי יש לומר, maybe there is a place to say, שעתה אחר שקיבלם באהבה גדולה, גם לאחר שמכרוהו, now that he has received his brothers with great love, after he revealed himself to them, after they sold him, meaning after they did something so bad to him, he even though received them with a lot of love, כמו שאמר להם בראשית, שם פרק י"ח, as it says over there in chapter 45, verse 18, ובואו אליי ואתנה לכם את טוב ארץ מצרים ואכלו את חלב הארץ. And now come to me and I will give to you the good parts of the land of Egypt, and you can eat from the fattest part of the land. In other words, he will spoil them. He will give them great things. ובוודאי הבינו האחים שמה שנתן לו 5 חליפות נתכוון לרמוז בזה רמז מיוחד. And so of course, and surely his brothers understood his intention of giving Binyamin the 5 suits in order to hint to him a very unique and special hint. ולא עשה כן מפני אהבת יתר שיש לו לבנימין. And he didn't do this because of favoritism that he had for Binyamin over the brothers. והגר"א בספרו כל אליהו, and the Gra in his book Kol Eliyahu, meaning the voice of Elijah, Parashat VaYigash ot mem gimel, on the Parasha of VaYigash, letter 43, Be'er, he clarified כי החליפות שנתן להם היו שוות הרבה יותר בערכם מחליפות שנתן לבנימין, because that the suits that he gave his brothers, the 11 tribes, meaning the 10 tribes, were actually more valuable than all of the suits that he gave Binyamin. ולקח לו היה סיבה שהתקנאו בבנימין שקיבל 5 חליפות. And that's why therefore they did not have a reason to be jealous of Binyamin that received 5 suits. אלא אדרבה, הבינו שרמז רמז לו בזה, כמו שאמרה הגמרא. And even more so, they understood that he actually wanted to give him a hint for the future by doing so, as the Talmud said, as we learned previously. Al kol panim, in any case, למדנו אחים יקרים. We learned, our dear brothers and sisters, מדברי רבותינו זכרונם לברכה, מסכת שבת, בית דברים. We learned from our sages of blessed memory over there, as we read in the Talmud Bavli, in the tractate of Shabbat, where בית דברים, 2 things. א', first of all, ההורים המפלים בין בניהם, יש בכך סכנה עתידית. Parents that do favoritism between their children and love one more than the other, or less than the other ones, there is a danger of doing so for in the future, meaning for the future of the relationship of the family. And secondly, bet, כמה קשה היא מידת הקנאה, שבשבילה נתגלגלו אבותינו למצרים. How tough and difficult and harsh is it, this attribute and characteristic of jealousy, that because of it, our ancestors have had the need to go down and be slaves in Egypt. ולכך צריכים ההורים אינה פקיחה. And that's why, therefore, parents need to have an open eye. לדעת איך לשבח את אחד מבניהם בעיני אחיו. ואין מתי לשבח. To know how to praise their children in the eyes of the other children. And when to praise. ולהעריף עליהם אהבה בצורה שווה. And to bestow upon all their children love in an equal manner. ולתת תשומת לב לכל אחד ואחד, and to give each and every child his own attention and time, בזמן הנכון ובמקום הנכון, והכל מדוד ומכוון. In a right timing, in the right place, everything should be measured and intentional, and with a plan behind it, not just randomly. Everything should be with focus. ודבר זה הוא בכלל הדברים שהזהירות יפה בהם. And this thing is included in the general things that when being careful, it can produce good fruits. ובלא תפילה לפני שכן מעונה, and without prayer in front of HaShem, who is residing in heaven, לבל נחשל בחס ושלום בעניין זה, so that we, God forbid, don't do a mishap in this matter. לא ייווצר כמעט שלא ייכשל האדם מבלי לשים לב, and that it can be that it's almost, there's no situation that every person, meaning this can happen to anyone. Anyone can fail with this, and it's very common because at a moment of unawareness it can happen. לכן על זאת יתפלל כל חסיד. That's why, therefore, every pious person should pray. Should pray for this. שירחמהו השם ויעזרהו בחינוך בניו. That Hashem should have mercy on him and help him and in the education and discipline of his children. שכולם יגדלו בדרך הישר. That all of them should grow in the straight path. על אדני התורה והארה, basically on the foundations of the Holy Torah and fear of God, awe of heaven, levad idach mimenu lidach, that none of his children should stray away, ונזכה לראות כל בנינו ובנותינו זרע ברוך Hashem, that we should have the merit to see all of our children and all of our sons and daughters as blessed seed from Hashem, tzadikim v'chasidim, righteous and pious, kedushim v'torim, holy and pure. Amen ken yeh ratzon, amen ve'amen. Thank you, and let's just finish off with a song that we can perhaps learn for our Shabbat table. Let me just share my screen momentarily. This is the translation of this song is: light up our eyes with your Torah, and let our hearts cling to your mitzvot, and unite our hearts to love and revere your name, that we shall never depart from it. It's part of the morning prayer, Shacharit, morning service of every day, before the blessing of Shema. So there's two tunes to this, but we'll just sing the more uplifting tune, I guess. Ve'HaEr EiNeiNu בתורתך ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולא נבוש ולא ניכלם ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד, ולא נבוש ולא ניכלם ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד. והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבנו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולא נבוש ולא ניכלם ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד, ולא נבוש ולא ניכלם ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד. Thank you, and Be'ezrat Hashem, we will see you next week. Beli neder, you have a Shabbat Shalom. תודה רבה.